Audiobook The Parallax Method by the Third Library. Introduction: The Space of Variations. In the deepest chamber of consciousness, beyond the reach of ordinary thought, there exists what ancient scholars called the infinite archive. This is not a metaphor dressed in mystical language, but a precise description of the quantum field itself, a vast repository where every possible version of your life exists simultaneously as a completed script. The wealthy version of you, the impoverished version, the celebrated and the forgotten, all of these iterations are not potential futures waiting to be created, but present realities existing in parallel sectors of the multiverse. You stand at the center of this infinite library, surrounded by billions of books, each one containing a different trajectory of your existence. The question that has haunted humanity since the dawn of awareness is not how to write a better story, but how to select the script you wish to embody. The traditional understanding of manifestation has led seekers astray for generations. They have been told to create, to build, to forge their reality through force of will and endless action. But this is the path of exhaustion, the road that leads to burnout and disillusionment. The truth, as revealed through quantum mechanics, is far more elegant and far less violent. You are not a creator struggling to bring something into existence from nothing. You are a selector, a consciousness with the power to tune your awareness to different frequencies of reality. Every desire you have ever felt, every goal that has called to you from the depths of your being, already exists in its completed form within the quantum field. The mansion you dream of living in is not waiting to be built. It is already standing in a parallel sector. The relationship you long for is not waiting to be created. It is already unfolding in an adjacent timeline. This brings us to the central revelation of the Parallax Method, the concept of parallax itself. In astronomy, parallax describes the apparent displacement of an object caused by a change in the observer's position. When you move from one point to another, distant stars appear to shift their location against the background of space. They have not moved. Your perspective has changed. This same principle governs the architecture of reality itself. To change what you see in your life, you do not need to move the objects of your desire closer to you through struggle and force. You need to move your consciousness to a different observational point within the quantum field. The wealth you seek has not moved away from you. You are simply observing reality from a coordinate where that wealth is not visible. Consider the implications of this understanding. Every morning, you wake up and observe your reality through a particular lens of expectation. You look at your bank account, your relationships, your career, and you make an unconscious decision about which sector of the multiverse you will continue to inhabit. This observation is not passive. It is the most powerful creative act available to consciousness. The quantum field responds to your observation by collapsing infinite possibilities into the singular reality you experience. If you observe lack, the wave function of abundance collapses into more experiences of scarcity. If you observe struggle, the potential for ease dissolves before it can materialize in your experience. You have been unknowingly commanding the universe to deliver exactly what you are focusing upon, whether that focus is wanted or unwanted. The Parallax Method is not another technique for positive thinking or another prescription for grinding your way to success. It is a navigation system for consciousness, a set of coordinates that will allow you to shift your observational point within the quantum field. This shift is subtle but absolute. It requires no physical effort, no networking, no hustling through the night. It requires only precision of awareness and steadiness of focus. You will learn to identify which sector you currently inhabit, how to select your desired coordinate, and most importantly, how to maintain your observational position long enough for the mirror of reality to catch up with your internal image. The time lag between selection and materialization has caused countless seekers to abandon the method just before their breakthrough. They changed their inner coordinate but returned to observing their old reality, thus recollapsing the wave function back into the familiar pattern of struggle. Throughout this audiobook, you will encounter terms borrowed from quantum physics: wave function, collapse, entanglement, trajectory, sector, and coordinate. These are not decorative metaphors. They are the precise language of reality mechanics. The mystics of old understood these principles intuitively and described them in the vocabulary available to their era, as faith, as surrender, as alignment with the divine. Modern physics has now provided the mathematical framework that validates their insights. You stand at the convergence point where science and mysticism recognize each other as different languages describing the same territory. The Parallax Method synthesizes both languages into a practical system that can be applied immediately to transform your experience of reality. The first shift in understanding that must occur is this: you are not in a single fixed universe having a single linear experience. You are consciousness experiencing one particular thread within an infinite tapestry of parallel realities. Every decision you make, every thought you think, every emotion you entertain sends out a signal that determines which thread becomes visible to your awareness. The thread you are currently experiencing, with all its limitations, frustrations, and struggles, is not the only thread available. It is simply the thread to which your consciousness has become habituated through years of unconscious observation. You have been practicing the same observational patterns for so long that they feel like the only reality possible. But possibility has never been the issue. Selection is the issue. Imagine standing in a vast hall of mirrors, each mirror reflecting a different version of your life. One mirror shows you wealthy and at peace. Another shows you struggling and anxious. A third shows you moderately comfortable but unfulfilled. These mirrors are not showing you potential futures. They are showing you present realities existing simultaneously in parallel sectors of the quantum field. The version of you that you experience as real is determined entirely by which mirror you stand before and observe. When you move to a different position in the hall, a different reflection becomes visible, and that reflection is no less real than the one you were observing moments before. The Parallax Method teaches you how to navigate this hall with intention, rather than wandering through it randomly, buffeted by circumstance and unconscious reaction. The power of this understanding cannot be overstated. Every spiritual tradition, every manifestation teaching, every success philosophy has been attempting to describe this same mechanism using different frameworks. Some called it faith, others called it visualization, still others called it the law of attraction. But all of them were pointing toward the same quantum principle. Consciousness selects reality through the act of observation, and reality cannot help but conform to the pattern of that observation given sufficient time and consistency. The failures of these various methods have never been failures of the principle itself, but failures of implementation. Seekers were taught to visualize without understanding the quantum mechanics of observation. They were taught to affirm without understanding the physics of wave function collapse. They were taught to believe without understanding the role of entanglement and importance in creating resistance. The Parallax Method removes all mystification from the process. You will learn exactly what you are doing when you shift your observation, exactly why it works, and exactly what obstacles will attempt to pull you back to your old observational coordinate. You will learn to recognize the pendulums, collective thought structures that feed on your emotional energy and keep you trapped in sectors of struggle. You will learn to identify quantum entanglement with unwanted circumstances and how to dissolve those energetic bonds. You will learn the mirror principle and how to work with the time lag between internal shift and external manifestation. Most importantly, you will learn to reduce the importance you place on your desire, because excess importance creates the very resistance that prevents your transition to the desired sector. This is not a journey of accumulation, but a journey of alignment. You are not trying to add something to yourself that you lack. You are trying to shift your observational position to the sector where what you desire is already present and visible. The version of you that possesses everything you want already exists. It is not waiting to be created. It is waiting to be observed. Your work is not to become that version through years of effort and transformation. Your work is to move your consciousness to the coordinate where that version is the natural, inevitable reflection of your observational state. This is the essence of the Parallax Method, not changing the object, but changing the observer's position. As you move through these chapters, you will find practical techniques woven throughout the theoretical framework. Theory without practice is merely philosophy. Practice without theory is merely superstition. The Parallax Method provides both the scientific understanding of why reality responds to consciousness and the precise steps to implement that understanding in your daily experience. You will learn visualization techniques that account for quantum mechanics, decision-making frameworks that honor the alternative flow, and emotional management protocols that prevent negative-induced transitions. Each chapter builds upon the previous, constructing a complete system for navigating the space of variations. The journey begins with a single understanding. Reality is not solid. It is fluid, responsive, and infinitely malleable to the position of the observer. You are that observer, and you have always possessed the power to select your coordinate within the quantum field. What you have lacked until now is the map, the navigation system, the precise understanding of how to move from where you are to where you wish to be. The Parallax Method is that map. It is the product of decades of study across quantum physics, consciousness research, and ancient mystical traditions. It is offered to you now because you are ready to understand that you are not bound by circumstances, not limited by history, not trapped in a single thread of reality. You are consciousness itself, and consciousness is the selector of all experience. Let us begin the journey to your desired coordinate. Let us begin the practice of intentional observation. Let us begin the navigation of the space of variations. Everything you seek already exists, waiting for your consciousness to arrive at the proper observational point. The Parallax Method will guide you there if you are willing to release the old understanding of how reality works and embrace the quantum truth. You are not creating your reality, you are selecting it. The selection has always been yours. Now you will learn to make it consciously, deliberately, and with full understanding of the mechanics at play. The infinite archive awaits your selection. The only question remaining is, which script will you choose to embody? Chapter 1. The Observer Effect. At the foundation of quantum mechanics lies an experiment so simple in design, yet so profound in implication, that it shattered the entire edifice of classical physics. This is the double-slit experiment, and understanding it is essential to grasping how your consciousness shapes reality. In this experiment, scientists fire individual particles of light, photons, toward a barrier with two narrow slits cut into it. Behind this barrier sits a detector screen that records where each photon lands. The expectation was straightforward. Each photon would travel through one slit or the other and create two distinct bands on the screen corresponding to the two slits. This is what particles do. They occupy specific locations and travel along definite paths. But the universe had other plans. When scientists conducted the experiment without observing which slit each photon passed through, something extraordinary occurred. Instead of two bands, the screen displayed an interference pattern, multiple bands of light and dark that could only be created if each photon somehow passed through both slits simultaneously, interfering with itself like a wave. The photons were behaving not as localized particles, but as probability waves, existing in multiple positions at once until they struck the detector screen. Light was revealed to be a wave of potential, carrying within it all possible paths it might take, all locations it might occupy. This wave contained the complete spectrum of where the photon could be, and it traveled through both slits at the same time in a state of superposition. But here is where the experiment reveals the power of observation. When scientists placed detectors at the slits to observe which path each photon actually took, the interference pattern vanished. The moment observation entered the system, the photons began behaving like classical particles again, each traveling through only one slit and creating the expected two-band pattern on the screen. The act of observation collapsed the wave function, the field of infinite possibilities, into a single definite reality. The photon was forced to choose one path when it was being watched, but it remained in a state of multiple simultaneous paths when unobserved. This is not a metaphor or a poetic description. This is measured, repeatable, scientific fact. Observation determines reality at the quantum level. Now, translate this principle from photons to your life. You exist in a quantum field of infinite possibilities. Every moment contains a wave function of potential outcomes, wealth and poverty, success and failure, connection and isolation, health and illness. These are not distant futures that might happen. They are present potentials existing simultaneously in the quantum field, just as the photon exists in multiple locations before observation. Your life in this moment is a superposition of all possible versions of your existence. The version that collapses into your experienced reality is determined entirely by where you place your observation. If you observe struggle, you collapse the wave function into circumstances that match struggle. If you observe abundance, you collapse different sectors of the probability field into manifestation. This is why the traditional approach to changing your life, focusing on problems to solve them, creates more problems. When you observe your debt with worry and attention, you are functioning as the detector in the double-slit experiment. You are collapsing the wave function of your financial reality into the pattern that matches your observation. More debt, more struggle, more lack. The quantum field is neutral. It does not judge your observation as good or bad. It simply responds to the act of observation itself by solidifying the corresponding reality. You cannot observe poverty with the intention of escaping it and expect to collapse into wealth. The observation is the command. What you observe is what solidifies. The amateur practitioner of reality creation makes a critical error at this juncture. They assume that observing their current unwanted circumstances is necessary for dealing with them. They believe they must face reality, must acknowledge what is, must be realistic about their situation. But this is classical thinking attempting to operate in a quantum system. In the quantum field, observing your current reality strengthens it, reinforces it, commands it to continue. You are not being realistic, you are being repetitive. You are issuing the same observational command day after day, and the universe is simply obeying by continuing to deliver the reality that matches your observation. To change the outcome, you must change not what you observe, but where you place your observation within the field of possibilities. Consider the implications for expectation. Expectation is observation projected forward in time. When you expect struggle, you are pre-observing a particular sector of the probability field. You are selecting in advance which wave function will collapse into your experience. The quantum field registers this expectation as an observational command and begins organizing circumstances to deliver what you expect. This is not mystical thinking. It is the observer effect translated into daily life. Your expectations are quantum instructions. They tell the field which possibility to solidify, which thread of reality to make visible to your awareness. If you expect difficulty, you will not be disappointed, not because the universe is cruel, but because it is obedient. The power lies in understanding that you can observe possibilities that have not yet materialized in your current experience. You can place your observation on the sector of the probability field where your desired outcome already exists in potential form. This is not fantasy or delusion. It is quantum navigation. You are choosing which wave function to collapse through the deliberate placement of your observational focus. The wealthy version of your life exists right now as a probability wave in the quantum field. It has not manifested in your experience because you have been placing your observation elsewhere, on lack, on obstacles, on the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Every time you observe that gap, you collapse the wave function into more gap. This is why meditation traditions emphasize present moment awareness without judgment. They intuited the quantum principle thousands of years before the double-slit experiment was conducted. When you observe the present moment without labeling it as good or bad, without projecting past or future onto it, you temporarily suspend the collapse of the wave function into rigid patterns. You create space for new possibilities to emerge. You stop commanding the universe to repeat yesterday's pattern. The moment of pure awareness, free from judgment and expectation, is a moment of quantum fluidity. It is in this space that intentional observation becomes possible. You can choose which aspect of the probability field to focus upon rather than automatically observing the same patterns you observed yesterday. The double-slit experiment reveals another crucial insight. The universe does not collapse into reality behind your back. It collapses in response to conscious observation. This means that whatever you are not observing remains in a state of potential. Your financial situation, for instance, is not a fixed, solid thing that exists independently of your awareness. It is a particular collapse of the wave function that persists because you continue to observe it. The moment you withdraw your observation from your current financial state and place it firmly on the financial state you prefer, you initiate a shift in the quantum field. The old pattern begins to lose coherence because it is no longer being observed into solidity. The new pattern begins to gain coherence because it is receiving your observational energy. But there is a critical requirement for this process to work: consistency of observation. The photon's wave function collapses the instant the detector observes it, but you are not a photon, and your life is a complex system with momentum and time lag built into it. You cannot observe abundance for 5 minutes and then spend the rest of the day observing lack and expect the abundance observation to dominate. The quantum field responds to your dominant observational pattern, not to occasional glimpses of preferred reality. This is where most seekers fail. They place their observation on their desire briefly, during meditation, during visualization, during moments of hope. But they spend the majority of their waking hours observing their current unwanted circumstances. The wave function collapses toward the observation that receives the most attention and emotional energy. Therefore, the practice of the observer effect is not a technique you do for 10 minutes in the morning. It is a fundamental shift in how you relate to your experience throughout the day. You must train yourself to observe the reality you prefer, even while the current physical reality appears to contradict it. This is not denial, it is quantum navigation. You are consciously choosing which wave function to collapse through disciplined observation. When you look at your empty bank account, you do not deny its current state, but you also do not give it your primary observation. You acknowledge it briefly, and then immediately shift your observation to the financial abundance that exists in the probability field. You practice seeing both simultaneously, the current physical state and the preferred quantum potential. This double vision is the key to mastering the observer effect. You are training yourself to observe through the current reality to the underlying quantum field where all possibilities exist. The current reality is simply the collapsed wave function from previous observations. It is echo, not authority. It is effect, not cause. The cause is always observation. The effect is always the solidified reality that matches the observation. Once you truly understand this relationship, you can never again see yourself as a victim of circumstances. Circumstances are simply the materialized patterns of your past observations. They have no power except the power you give them through continued observation. The double-slit experiment proved that reality at the quantum level is not independent of observation. It is created by observation. Your life operates on the same principle, just at a larger scale with a longer time lag between observation and manifestation. The lag creates the illusion that reality is solid and unchangeable, but it is neither. It is responsive, fluid, and entirely dependent on where you place your conscious observation. You are not a passive observer of a pre-existing reality. You are an active participant in the collapse of the wave function, and every moment of observation is a vote for which reality will solidify around you. The question is not whether you are observing and collapsing reality. You are constantly, with every thought and glance. The question is whether you are doing so consciously and deliberately, or unconsciously and reactively. To change your life through the observer effect, you must become ruthlessly aware of where you place your observation throughout the day. Notice when you are observing problems, lack, obstacles, and difficulties. These observations are commands to the quantum field to continue delivering those experiences. Then, with intention and discipline, redirect your observation to the aspects of the probability field that contain your desired outcomes. Observe wealth even when your bank account shows otherwise. Observe health even when your body shows symptoms. Observe connection even when you feel alone. You are not lying to yourself, you are navigating the quantum field. You are placing your observation on the wave function you wish to collapse, knowing that reality must eventually conform to the pattern of sustained observation. This is the observer effect. Consciousness, does not passively witness reality. It collapses reality into being through the act of observation. You have been unknowingly using this power your entire life, but you have been using it unconsciously, observing by default the patterns of your past. Now you will learn to use it consciously, to observe by intention the patterns of your preferred future. The photon goes through both slits until you watch it choose one. Your life contains all possibilities until you observe one into solidity. Choose your observation with care, for the universe is listening. Chapter 2. The Law of Pendulums. There exists in the energetic architecture of reality a phenomenon that traps more consciousness in cycles of struggle than any other force. These are called pendulums, vast structures of collective thought and emotion that swing through the fabric of reality, gathering adherents and feeding on their energy. A pendulum is created whenever multiple consciousnesses focus attention and emotional investment on the same idea, belief system, or structure. Politics is a pendulum. Religion is a pendulum. Fashion is a pendulum. But the most insidious pendulum of all, the one that keeps millions locked in sectors of poverty and exhaustion, is the pendulum of hard work and struggle. It swings through society with tremendous momentum, and anyone who resonates with its frequency becomes entrained to its rhythm. A pendulum begins innocently enough, a shared idea, a common concern, a collective goal. But as more people invest their attention and emotion into this idea, it takes on a life of its own. It becomes an autonomous energy structure in the quantum field, separate from any individual consciousness, but sustained by all of them collectively. The pendulum does not care about the well-being of its adherents. It cares only about its own continued existence, and it exists by feeding on emotional energy, particularly the energy of conflict, fear, righteousness, and struggle. The more you react emotionally to a pendulum's narrative, the more energy you feed it, and the stronger its grip becomes on your consciousness and your reality. Consider the pendulum of hustle culture, which has dominated the entrepreneurial and success-oriented sectors for decades. Its central message is seductive and seemingly logical. Success requires sacrifice, wealth demands exhaustion, and if you are not grinding yourself into dust, you are not worthy of abundance. This pendulum swings through social media, through business seminars, through motivational content, pulling millions of consciousnesses into its rhythm. Those who resonate with this frequency begin to organize their entire lives around its dictates. They wake at impossible hours, sacrifice relationships and health, and measure their worth by their level of exhaustion. And the pendulum feeds on this energy, growing stronger, demanding more, creating a reality where success truly does require endless struggle, but only for those trapped in its frequency. The mechanism of entrapment is elegant and ruthless. A pendulum radiates a specific frequency, a particular way of thinking and feeling about reality. When your consciousness resonates with this frequency, when you believe the pendulum's narrative, when you feel the emotions it promotes, you become energetically entangled with the structure. The pendulum then gains partial control over your reality trajectory. It influences your decisions, shapes your expectations, and most importantly, it ensures that your experiences continue to validate its narrative. If you are entangled with the struggle pendulum, you will encounter circumstances that require struggle. Not because struggle is inherent to success, but because you are resonating with a frequency that generates struggle as its primary experience. The pendulum's survival strategy is brilliant in its simplicity. It creates scenarios that provoke emotional reactions from its adherents. These reactions feed more energy into the pendulum, strengthening both its influence and your entanglement with it. If you are caught in the politics pendulum, you will be outraged by the opposing party, terrified by current events, and convinced that catastrophe is imminent unless you remain vigilant and reactive. If you are caught in the financial struggle pendulum, you will experience endless setbacks, unexpected expenses, and circumstances that demand you work harder, sacrifice more, and remain trapped in the cycle. The pendulum does not create these experiences out of malice. It creates them out of necessity. It needs your emotional energy to exist, and struggle produces the most potent emotional fuel. Here is the liberation. Pendulums have no power over consciousness. that does not resonate with their frequency. You cannot be forced to entangle with a pendulum. You must provide the resonance yourself through agreement, attention, and emotional investment. The moment you stop feeding a pendulum your energy, the moment you practice indifference to its narrative, it loses its grip on your reality. This is not suppression or denial. Indifference is a specific energetic stance. You acknowledge the pendulum's existence without reacting to it emotionally, without arguing with it, without trying to defeat it. You simply withdraw your resonance and allow the pendulum to swing past you without entrainment. The practice of indifference is perhaps the most challenging technique in the Parallax Method because it runs counter to every instinct cultivated by modern society. You have been trained to react, to have opinions, to take sides, to care deeply about narratives that have nothing to do with your actual life. But every reaction is a feeding. Every strong opinion about politics, every judgment about how others should live, every fear about societal collapse, these are energy transfers to pendulums. The more you react, the more entangled you become, and the more your personal reality is shaped by the pendulum's agenda rather than your own intentional selection. To escape a pendulum, you must first recognize that you are caught in one, and then you must practice the discipline of non-reaction. The poverty pendulum deserves special attention because it operates with such pervasive influence that its frequency is considered normal, even virtuous, by much of society. This pendulum teaches that wealth is scarce, that earning it requires suffering, that those who have it are somehow corrupt or lucky, and that those who lack it are noble or cursed. It generates endless content around financial anxiety, creates systems that seem designed to keep people struggling, and most importantly, it keeps consciousnesses observing lack rather than abundance. Every time you worry about money, every time you resent the wealthy, every time you tell yourself that money is hard to come by, you are resonating with the poverty pendulum and commanding the quantum field to deliver more poverty into your experience. Breaking free from the poverty pendulum requires a radical act. You must stop finding identity or meaning in financial struggle. Many people are so deeply entangled with this pendulum that poverty has become part of their self-concept. They are the one who struggles, the one who never has enough, the one who has to work twice as hard for half as much. This identity is not truth. It is entanglement. It is the pendulum's frequency playing through your consciousness, shaping your observations, and collapsing the wave function into experiences that validate the struggle narrative. To escape, you must be willing to release this identity, even if it has become comfortable or familiar through years of repetition. The technique of escaping a pendulum is deceptively simple. Stop reacting to its triggers. When the struggle pendulum presents you with a circumstance that traditionally would provoke fear, anxiety, or frantic action, you respond with calm indifference. You acknowledge the circumstance without emotional charge, and then redirect your observation to your desired coordinate. This is not passive acceptance of unwanted circumstances. It is active declutching from the pendulum's frequency. You are refusing to provide the emotional reaction that feeds the structure and maintains your entanglement. The pendulum will test you repeatedly, presenting increasingly provocative scenarios designed to pull you back into reaction. Your freedom depends on your ability to remain in indifference regardless of the provocation. Consider a practical example. You encounter an unexpected expense, a car repair, a medical bill, a tax penalty. The poverty pendulum immediately radiates a frequency of panic. You can't afford this. This will ruin you. You'll have to work extra hours. You'll fall behind on other bills. If you resonate with this frequency, if you feel the panic, believe the narrative, and react with stress and fear, you have fed the pendulum. You have strengthened your entanglement and ensured that more such circumstances will appear in your reality. But if you practice indifference, if you acknowledge the expense calmly, trust that the solution will appear, and redirect your observation to financial abundance, you declutch from the pendulum. You stop feeding it. And gradually, your reality begins to shift away from the frequency of financial crisis. The pendulum of hard work is particularly seductive because it contains a grain of truth wrapped in a poisonous coating. Action is required to navigate physical reality, but struggle is not. Effort can be joyful and energizing, but exhaustion is not mandatory. The pendulum distorts the truth of action into the lie of suffering, convincing adherents that unless they are suffering, they are not truly working toward their goals. This keeps consciousnesses trapped in sectors where success and peace cannot coexist, where wealth and rest are mutually exclusive. The reality is that the universe prefers efficiency over struggle. The quantum field will always deliver your desired outcome through the path of least resistance, unless you are entangled with a pendulum that demands resistance as proof of worthiness. To test whether you are entangled with a pendulum, notice your emotional reactions. Do you feel righteously angry about certain topics? Do you feel compelled to defend certain positions or attack certain ideas? Do you feel anxiety when you consider stepping away from certain beliefs or behaviors? These emotional charges indicate entanglement. The pendulum has convinced you that your identity, your safety, or your morality depends on maintaining resonance with its frequency. But your true nature is not dependent on any pendulum. You are consciousness navigating the quantum field, and you can select any frequency you choose. The only requirement is that you withdraw your energy from the pendulums that are currently shaping your reality. The liberation from pendulums creates immediate space in your consciousness. Energy that was previously consumed by reactions, opinions, fears, and struggles becomes available for intentional observation. You suddenly have the capacity to focus on your desired coordinate without constant interference from pendulum-generated circumstances. This is why indifference is not a passive state, but an active practice of energy management. You are reclaiming your power from external structures and directing it toward your chosen reality. The pendulum will not release you easily. It will present increasingly dramatic scenarios to provoke your reaction. But if you maintain indifference, if you refuse to feed it, it will eventually stop targeting you and move on to consciousnesses that still resonate with its frequency. The ultimate understanding of pendulums is this: they are not evil, they are not conspiracies, and they are not impossible to escape. They are simply energy structures that exist in the collective field, and they can only influence you if you provide the resonance. Every moment you spend reacting emotionally to news, to social media, to others' opinions, to societal narratives, these are moments where pendulums are feeding on your energy and shaping your reality according to their agenda rather than yours. To reclaim your power as a conscious navigator of reality, you must practice ruthless indifference to every pendulum that is not aligned with your chosen coordinate. This does not mean you stop caring about your own life. It means you stop wasting energy caring about dramas and narratives that are not part of your desired trajectory. The Law of Pendulums states, collective thought structures feed on emotional energy and entrap consciousnesses through resonance. To escape a pendulum, practice indifference to its narrative and withdraw all emotional reaction. Your freedom exists in the space of non-reaction, where your energy is yours to direct rather than the pendulums to harvest. When you walk through life unentangled with the major pendulums, politics, struggle, victimhood, scarcity, you become nearly invisible to the mechanisms that keep most people trapped in unwanted sectors. You move through reality like a ghost, untouchable by the forces that dominate mass consciousness. From this position of energetic independence, you can direct all your observational power toward the coordinate you have selected, and the quantum field can finally deliver what you want without interference from pendulum-generated resistance. Chapter 3. Quantum Entanglement. In the quantum field, there exists a phenomenon so bizarre that Einstein himself called it spooky action at a distance. When two particles interact and then separate, they remain connected at the quantum level regardless of the physical distance between them. Measure the spin of one particle, and the other particle instantly displays the complementary spin, even if it is on the opposite side of the universe. This connection is not transmitted through space. It exists outside of space and time. The particles are entangled, locked into a relationship where the state of one instantly determines the state of the other. This is quantum entanglement, and it operates not only at the subatomic level, but throughout the entire architecture of consciousness and reality. You are quantumly entangled with everything you focus upon with emotional intensity. This is not metaphor, it is energetic mechanics. When you direct sustained emotional attention toward any aspect of reality, a person, a circumstance, a problem, a desire, you create an entanglement bond between your consciousness and that element. The bond persists as long as you continue to feed it with attention and emotion, and through this bond, information and energy flow in both directions. You are influenced by what you are entangled with, and you cannot move to a different sector of reality while maintaining these entanglement bonds. They act as energetic anchors, tethering you to specific coordinates in the quantum field, regardless of your stated intentions to move elsewhere. The most destructive form of entanglement is hatred. When you hate something, poverty, a person, a political party, an injustice, you create the strongest possible entanglement bond with it. The intensity of the emotional charge is the key factor in entanglement, and hatred generates tremendous intensity. Every moment you spend focusing on what you hate, you are strengthening your connection to it. You are commanding the quantum field to keep that thing present in your experience because you are observing it constantly with high emotional charge. The universe is neutral. It does not distinguish between I want this and I hate this. It only registers the observation and the emotion, and it delivers more of what you are observing with intensity. This is why resistance perpetuates what is resisted. When you fight against poverty, you entangle with poverty. When you fight against injustice, you entangle with injustice. When you fight against illness, you entangle with illness. The fighting itself is the entanglement mechanism. You cannot push something away through force. You can only bind yourself to it more tightly. This is perhaps the most counterintuitive principle in the Parallax Method, because human instinct says that to eliminate an unwanted circumstance, you must fight it, oppose it, work against it. But quantum mechanics reveals that opposition is observation, and observation is creation. The more you oppose something, the more you observe it, and the more you observe it, the more you collapse the wave function into its continued presence in your reality. Consider the person who hates their job. Every morning they wake with resentment. Throughout the day they focus on everything wrong with their workplace, the incompetent manager, the frustrating colleagues, the meaningless tasks. They fantasize about quitting, they complain to friends, they research other opportunities, while radiating anger and disgust toward their current situation. This person believes they are motivated to escape, but they are actually entangled. They are feeding enormous amounts of emotional energy into their unwanted circumstance, strengthening the bond daily and ensuring that they cannot shift to a different sector where a fulfilling career exists. The job they hate has become their primary point of observation, and that observation is collapsing the wave function into more reasons to hate the job. The path out of unwanted circumstances is not through opposition, but through energetic disengagement. You must learn to pass through your current reality like a ghost, present but not entangled, acknowledging but not investing. This is the practice of non-attachment, but understood now through quantum mechanics rather than Eastern philosophy. Non-attachment is not cold indifference to life, it is strategic energy management. You withdraw your emotional investment from what you do not want so that you can stop creating entanglement bonds with it. The circumstance may still exist in your physical reality temporarily, but if you stop observing it with emotional charge, you stop commanding the quantum field to perpetuate it. The mechanism of entanglement also explains why so many people find themselves trapped in repetitive patterns with romantic partners, family members, or recurring life situations. They are quantumly entangled with these patterns through years of intense emotional focus. The relationship may be toxic, the family dynamic may be destructive, but the entanglement is strong because the emotional investment has been consistent and intense. To break free, it is not enough to physically leave the situation. You must dissolve the entanglement bond by withdrawing your emotional charge. As long as you continue to mentally replay conversations, nurse resentments, justify your position, or defend yourself in imaginary arguments, you remain entangled. The other person need not even be present. Your consciousness maintains the connection through ongoing emotional attention. The practice of dissolving entanglement begins with awareness. Throughout your day, Notice where your attention goes when it is not occupied with immediate tasks. Does it return again and again to a problem, a person, a resentment, a fear? These repetitive focuses are entanglement points. Each time your attention returns to them, you are strengthening the bond and ensuring that the quantum field continues to deliver experiences that match your focus. The dissolution begins when you catch yourself in these repetitive thought patterns and consciously redirect your attention elsewhere, not through force or suppression, but through gentle, consistent redirection to your chosen coordinate, to the reality you prefer to experience. There is a critical distinction between acknowledging something and entangling with it. You can be aware that poverty exists in your current experience without hating it, fighting it, or investing emotional intensity in it. You observe it neutrally, as you might observe clouds passing across the sky. Present, noted, but not significant enough to command your emotional energy. This neutral observation does not create entanglement. It does not strengthen the bond. It allows you to take practical action to address the circumstance without feeding energy into its continuation. Action without attachment, movement without entanglement. This is the key to navigating out of unwanted sectors without carrying the unwanted reality with you. The quantum entanglement principle also illuminates why forgiveness is so powerful as a reality-shifting technique. Forgiveness is not about condoning harmful behavior or pretending something didn't hurt. Forgiveness is the dissolution of entanglement. When you forgive someone who wronged you, you are energetically severing the bond that ties you to that past event and to the emotional charge surrounding it. As long as you hold grudges, replay injustices, or maintain resentment, you are entangled with the person and the event. They continue to influence your present reality because the quantum connection persists. Forgiveness cuts the cord. It releases both parties from the entanglement and allows you to move to a sector of reality where that past event no longer determines your present experience. Consider the implications for desire itself. Many spiritual teachers speak of releasing attachment to outcomes, and this wisdom is validated by quantum entanglement mechanics. When you desire something with desperate intensity, when you need it for your happiness or identity, when you cannot imagine being okay without it, you create entanglement through the intensity of your focus. But entanglement with a desired outcome creates a paradox. You are simultaneously focused on having it, which would collapse the wave function into its manifestation, and focused on not having it, which is what generates the desperate intensity. This conflicted entanglement creates resistance. The quantum field receives mixed signals: observe having it, observe lacking it, and the wave function cannot cleanly collapse into either state. This is why the principle of reducing importance, which will be explored in depth later, is essential for manifestation. You must want your desired outcome without desperate need. You must select it clearly without obsessive focus. This balance allows you to direct observation toward what you want without creating entanglement through emotional intensity. You observe it with interest and intention, not with grasping need. The difference in emotional quality changes everything. Interest and intention create clean observation. Desperate need creates tangled observation. The quantum field can deliver clean observation into manifestation smoothly. Tangled observation generates resistance and delay. To identify your entanglements, examine your emotional reactions. What triggers anger in you? What generates fear? What do you find yourself thinking about obsessively? What do you complain about regularly? What do you defend passionately? These emotional charges indicate entanglement. You are bound to these topics, people, or circumstances through quantum connection, and they will continue to appear in your reality until you dissolve the bonds. The dissolution is simple in concept, but requires discipline in practice. You must withdraw your emotional investment, redirect your attention, and refuse to be pulled back into the familiar patterns of reaction and focus that created the entanglement originally. The technique of ghosting is particularly effective for dissolving entanglement with unwanted circumstances. You practice moving through your current reality as if you are already in the process of transitioning to your desired sector. You acknowledge what is present without resistance, without complaint, without emotional charge. You fulfill your obligations calmly, but without investment in the continuation of the situation. You are present in body, but detached in consciousness. This is not dissociation or avoidance. It is strategic navigation. You are refusing to strengthen the entanglement bonds while you wait for your observation of the desired reality to collapse the wave function into new physical circumstances. The liberation from entanglement creates a lightness in your consciousness that is immediately noticeable. Energy that was consumed by maintaining these quantum connections, energy spent in resentment, worry, hatred, desperate desire, and repetitive thinking, suddenly becomes available for other purposes. You feel less drained, more present, more capable of sustained observation toward your chosen coordinate. This is not coincidental. Entanglements are energy drains, constantly pulling your consciousness back to past events, unwanted circumstances, and conflicted focuses. When you dissolve them, you reclaim your power to direct reality through clean, unconflicted observation. Quantum entanglement teaches us that you cannot escape what you fight, you cannot leave what you hate, you cannot move away from what you obsess over, even if your obsession is focused on getting away from it. The attention itself is the anchor. The emotional charge is the bond. To truly transition to a different sector of reality, you must first dissolve all entanglement with the sector you wish to leave. This requires a paradoxical state. You must stop caring intensely about what you do not want, while simultaneously selecting clearly what you do want. The first half dissolves the old bonds. The second half creates the new trajectory. Both are necessary. Neither alone is sufficient. The practice of entanglement dissolution is ongoing, because new entanglements attempt to form constantly through the provocations of daily life, through media consumption, through social interactions, and through the momentum of old patterns. You must cultivate the habit of noticing when you are being pulled into emotional reaction and consciously declining the invitation. Each time you refuse to entangle, you strengthen your capacity for neutral observation. Each time you catch yourself entangled and consciously dissolve the bond through redirection of attention, you train your consciousness to operate with greater freedom and precision. Over time, you become nearly immune to entanglement, moving through reality in a state of engaged presence without binding attachment. The ultimate understanding of quantum entanglement is this: you are connected to what you observe with emotional intensity, and that connection persists until you consciously dissolve it. Your freedom depends on your willingness to release all bonds with unwanted aspects of reality, not through abandonment or denial, but through the withdrawal of emotional investment and the redirection of attention to your chosen coordinate. You cannot take your entanglements with you to the new sector. You must travel light, unbound, with your consciousness clear, and your observation focused solely on where you are going rather than what you are leaving. The quantum field will meet you there if you arrive unentangled. Chapter 4. The Mirror Principle. Reality operates as a dual mirror, and understanding this mechanism is essential for navigating the space of variations without falling into the trap of reactive observation. On one side of this mirror stands the image, the internal picture you hold in your consciousness, the expectation you maintain, the observation you practice. On the other side stands the reflection, the physical manifestation, the material circumstances, the events and situations you experience in the world. The relationship between these two sides is not instantaneous, and this delay is where most seekers lose faith in the method. They change the image but continue to observe the old reflection, thus recreating the old image and preventing the new one from materializing. The mirror operates according to precise laws that cannot be violated. When you change your internal image, when you shift your observation to a new coordinate in the quantum field, the mirror must eventually display the corresponding reflection. This is not faith or hope, it is physics. The quantum field responds to observation, but there is a reaction delay built into physical reality. The time lag between changing the image and seeing the new reflection depends on multiple factors: the momentum of your previous pattern, the consistency of your new observation, the degree of importance you place on the outcome, and the presence of any conflicting observations or entanglements that are simultaneously collapsing the wave function in different directions. The amateur makes a predictable error when working with the mirror. They create a new image through visualization, affirmation, or intention setting. They hold this image for a few moments or perhaps a few days. Then they look at the mirror, at their physical circumstances, expecting to see the new reflection immediately. When they see the old reflection still present, because the time lag has not yet completed, they interpret this as failure. They conclude that the method does not work, that their desire is not manifesting, that something is blocking them. In response to this perceived failure, they make a face of disappointment, frustration, or despair. And the mirror, operating with perfect precision, now reflects this new image back to them. More disappointment, more frustration, more evidence that nothing is working. The master understands the time lag and refuses to be deceived by it. When the master changes the internal image, they maintain that image regardless of what the current reflection shows. They smile at the blank mirror, knowing with absolute certainty that the physics of reflection are operating and that the new image will appear once the system has time to reconfigure. They do not check the mirror anxiously every hour to see if the new reflection has appeared yet. They do not waver in their internal image because the external circumstances have not yet shifted. They understand that the mirror has no choice but to reflect what stands before it, and as long as they maintain the new image consistently, the new reflection is inevitable. This principle illuminates why doubt is so destructive to manifestation. Doubt is not a mental state, it is an image. When you doubt that your desire will manifest, you are not just thinking negative thoughts, you are standing before the mirror making a face of doubt. The mirror reflects doubt back to you as circumstances that seem to confirm your doubt. Then you see these circumstances, and your doubt deepens, and the mirror reflects deeper doubt. You enter a feedback loop where the image creates the reflection, and the reflection reinforces the image, and the cycle perpetuates until you consciously interrupt it by changing the image and holding it steady despite what the current reflection shows. The time lag exists for a reason beyond mere physical causality. It serves as a testing mechanism, a filter that ensures only sustained observation collapses into manifestation. If reality shifted instantly with every passing thought, chaos would reign. The time lag creates stability by requiring consistent observation before wave function collapse solidifies into physical form. This means that random fears, passing worries, and momentary negativity do not immediately manifest as disasters. But it also means that genuine desires must be held consistently in observation for a period before they appear in your experience. The lag protects you from instantaneous manifestation of every mental fluctuation, but it also requires discipline when you are deliberately attempting to shift to a new sector. The practice of working with the mirror is straightforward, but requires unwavering commitment. You must decide on your desired image, the version of reality you wish to experience, and hold that image in your consciousness, regardless of what the current reflection shows. When you encounter evidence in your physical reality that contradicts your desired image, you do not take this evidence as truth. You recognize it as the reflection of yesterday's image, still visible in the mirror due to the time lag. You acknowledge it briefly, and then immediately return your observation to your desired image. You refuse to let the old reflection pull you into creating a matching image. You break the feedback loop by maintaining the new image despite the old reflection. This is where faith, properly understood, enters the practice. Faith is not belief in the supernatural. Faith is trust in the mechanics of the mirror. You hold your image because you understand that the mirror has no choice but to reflect it. Given sufficient time and consistency, you do not need to hope it will work. You know it will work because mirrors reflect. This is what they do. The mirror of reality is reflecting your internal state every moment of every day. It has been doing so your entire life. You have simply been unaware of the image you were projecting, and therefore you interpreted the reflection as something happening to you rather than something generated by you. The principle extends to all aspects of reality. Your relationships reflect your internal image of how relationships work. Your career reflects your internal image of your value and capabilities. Your health reflects your internal image of your body and vitality. None of these reflections are fixed or independent of your consciousness. They are all responses to the image you hold and project. Change the image, maintain it consistently, and the reflection must change. But if you change the image briefly and then revert to the old image because the reflection hasn't shifted yet, you reset the timer on the time lag and extend the period before the new reflection can appear. The most common failure mode is impatience during the time lag. The seeker generates a beautiful internal image of their desired reality. They visualize, they affirm, they feel the emotions of already having it. Then they go about their day and encounter the old reflection, the unfulfilling job, the empty bank account, the difficult relationship, and they collapse. The old reflection pulls them out of the new image, and they begin observing lack, observing problems, observing evidence that nothing is changing. They have abandoned the new image before the mirror had time to catch up. They created the right image, but they did not hold it long enough for the reflection to shift. To work effectively with the mirror, you must cultivate what can be called dual vision. You see the current reflection clearly. You are not in denial about your present circumstances. But you simultaneously hold the image of your desired reflection, and you give the desired image more weight, more attention, more emotional energy than you give to the current reflection. The current reflection is temporary, a lag effect, yesterday's news. The desired image is the instruction you are sending to the quantum field about tomorrow's manifestation. You see both, but you believe in the image rather than the reflection, because you understand that the image always precedes the reflection in the causal chain. This dual vision is the secret to maintaining your new observation during the time lag. You do not pretend your current circumstances don't exist. You simply recognize them as outdated information, as the echo of previous observations. You interact with them as necessary to fulfill practical obligations, but you do not give them authority over your internal state or your ongoing observation. You remain anchored in the new image, and the more consistently you do this, the faster the old reflection dissolves and the new one appears. The time lag shortens with practice because you are training the quantum field to respond to your conscious direction rather than to your unconscious reactions to circumstances. The mirror also reveals why affirmations often fail. Saying I am wealthy while believing I am broke creates a mixed image. The mirror does not respond to words. It responds to the actual image you are projecting through the totality of your consciousness, your thoughts, feelings, expectations, and unconscious beliefs. If your affirmation is contradicted by your underlying feeling state or your ongoing observations throughout the day, the mirror will reflect the dominant image, which is usually the unconscious one rather than the stated affirmation. Effective use of affirmations requires that the words align with your actual internal state and ongoing observation, not contradict them. Therefore, the practice is not to affirm what you do not believe, but to shift your observation to a sector where what you want already exists, and then describe that reality. You are not trying to convince yourself of something false. You are tuning to a different frequency and reporting on what you observe there. When you say, I am financially abundant, you are not lying about your current bank balance. You are observing the sector of the quantum field where your financially abundant self already exists, and you are describing that observation. The mirror begins to reflect this new observation as you maintain it consistently, and eventually your physical circumstances align with the frequency you have been observing. The mirror principle states, reality reflects your internal image after a time lag. To change your reality, change your internal image and maintain it consistently regardless of what the current reflection shows. Do not be deceived by the lag. Do not abandon the new image because the old reflection is still visible. The mirror is already responding to your new image. You simply cannot see the new reflection yet because it takes time for physical reality to reconfigure. Trust the mechanics. Hold the image. Wait for the reflection. It will come, because that is what mirrors do. They have no choice but to reflect what stands before them. You are standing before the mirror of reality every moment. What image are you projecting? Chapter 5. Coordinate selection. In the space of variations, the quantum field containing all possible versions of your life, Your desired reality already exists as a complete, fully formed coordinate. It is not waiting to be created, constructed, or earned. It is waiting to be selected. This shift in understanding is perhaps the most liberating insight in the entire Parallax Method. You are not building your desired reality from scratch through years of effort. You are navigating to the sector where it already exists in its finished form. The work is not in creation but in navigation, not in construction but in selection. And selection requires only one thing: the clarity to identify your desired coordinate and the discipline to hold your observation fixed upon it. The metaphor of the catalog is useful here. Imagine browsing through an infinite catalog where every possible life circumstance is available for immediate delivery. You do not ask how the items in the catalog will be manufactured or transported to you. You do not worry about whether you deserve them or whether you have the right credentials to order them. You simply point to the item you want and say, "This one." The catalog company handles all logistics. Your job is selection, not logistics. The quantum field operates the same way. Every possible version of your life is already available in the catalog of infinite variations. Your job is to select which one you want by holding your observation fixed on that coordinate. But here is where most seekers sabotage themselves. They select their desired coordinate and then immediately begin asking, "How will this happen?" This question is a trapdoor back into the old paradigm of creation rather than selection. The how question implies that you are responsible for engineering the path from where you are to where you want to be. It implies that you must figure out the mechanism, develop the strategy, work out the logistics. But these are not your responsibility when you are working at the level of quantum selection. The quantum field handles the how. The alternative flow of reality routes circumstances, opportunities, and synchronicities to deliver your selected coordinate through the path of least resistance. Your job is to maintain observation of the destination while remaining alert to the guidance signals the field sends. The distinction between desire and selection is critical. Desire implies lack. You want something you do not have. Desire generates a mixed signal in the quantum field. I want this is simultaneously, I do not have this. The wave function receives conflicting instructions and cannot collapse cleanly into manifestation. But selection implies availability. When you select something, you are operating from the understanding that it already exists, and you are simply choosing it from among available options. Selection is clean observation. There is no lack in it, no desperation, no need. There is only choice. And choice collapses the wave function clearly and efficiently because it contains no conflicting signal. To select your coordinate effectively, you must first achieve clarity about what you actually want. This is more difficult than it sounds because most people's desires are contaminated with pendulum programming, social conditioning, and fears disguised as goals. They want wealth because they hate poverty, entanglement. They want a relationship because they fear loneliness, entanglement. They want success because they need external validation, pendulum. These are not clean selections, they are reactions, and reactions perpetuate what is being reacted against rather than creating movement toward genuine desire. True coordinate selection begins with removing these contaminants and identifying what you actually want, independent of fear, social pressure, or comparison. The technique for achieving this clarity is to ask yourself, if I already had everything I think I want, what would I be experiencing in my daily life? This question bypasses the usual mental noise about how to get things and focuses on the experiential quality of your desired coordinate. You are not selecting objects or achievements, you are selecting a state of being, a quality of experience, a sector of reality characterized by specific feelings and circumstances. When you can describe the experiential quality of your desired coordinate with clarity and specificity, you have identified your destination in the space of variations. Once you have identified your coordinate, you must translate it into a clear mental image that you can hold consistently. This is not detailed visualization, where you imagine every nuance of the future. This is more like a snapshot, a single image that represents the essential quality of your desired coordinate. If your desired coordinate is financial abundance, The image might be you checking your bank balance and feeling calm satisfaction. If your desired coordinate is fulfilling work, the image might be you sitting at your desk engaged in a task that absorbs you completely. The image should be simple, emotionally resonant, and easily reproducible in your mind throughout the day. The error to avoid is overcomplication. Many people create elaborate visualization scenarios with specific details about exactly how their desire will manifest. They visualize the specific job they'll get, the specific person they'll marry, the specific house they'll buy. But this level of specification often works against you because you are constraining the quantum field to deliver your goal through one narrow channel. You are telling the universe not just what you want, but how it must be delivered. This blocks alternative routes that might be faster, easier, or more beneficial. Effective coordinate selection is specific about the quality of experience you want, but flexible about the form in which it appears. Here is a liberating truth. You do not need to know whether your desired coordinate is possible, realistic, or attainable. The space of variations contains literally every possible permutation of reality. There is a coordinate where you are extraordinarily wealthy, where you are in perfect health, where you have the relationship of your dreams. These are not fantasies or impossibilities. They are existing sectors within the quantum field. Your uncertainty about whether they are realistic is irrelevant. They exist. Your only job is to select them and hold your observation fixed on them long enough for your physical reality to shift to match your observational position. The practice of coordinate selection is not a one-time event, but an ongoing practice. Throughout each day, you carry your selected coordinate in your consciousness, like a background frequency. When your mind is not occupied with immediate tasks, it defaults to holding the image of your desired coordinate rather than defaulting to worry, planning, or observation of current problems. You train your consciousness to rest in the feeling of already inhabiting your desired sector. You practice moving through your current circumstances as if you are already in transition to the new coordinate. This consistent practice is what allows the quantum field to reconfigure your reality to match your selection. There is a subtle but crucial element to effective selection. You must select from desire rather than from fear. A coordinate selected because you are running away from something, poverty, loneliness, failure, carries the energetic signature of what you are running from. A coordinate selected because you are genuinely drawn towards something carries the clean frequency of attraction. The quantum field responds differently to these two signatures. Fear-based selection maintains entanglement with what you fear and often delivers experiences that perpetuate the fear. Desire-based selection creates movement toward what genuinely calls to you and delivers experiences that match the frequency of attraction rather than avoidance. To test whether your coordinate selection is clean or contaminated, notice how you feel when you imagine having already arrived at your desired sector. If you feel relief, your selection may be fear-based. You are imagining relief from current pain rather than genuine enjoyment of the desired state. If you feel expansion, joy, curiosity, or excitement, your selection is likely attraction-based. This emotional quality is important because it indicates which frequency you are broadcasting to the quantum field. Relief from pain still contains the frequency of pain. Genuine joy contains only the frequency of joy. The quantum field delivers more of whatever frequency you are broadcasting. The selection process also requires that you release attachment to specific timing. When you select your coordinate and then become anxious about how long it will take to manifest, you introduce resistance into the system. You are simultaneously observing your desired coordinate and observing its absence, evidenced by your anxiety about when it will arrive. This split observation creates interference in the wave function collapse. The practice is to select your coordinate, maintain observation of it, and remain indifferent to the timeline. Trust that the quantum field is reconfiguring circumstances to deliver your selection through the most efficient path available, and that the delivery will arrive precisely when all elements are aligned. Coordinate selection is the art of pointing. You point your consciousness toward a specific sector in the space of variations and hold it there. You do not push, force, or struggle toward it. You simply point and maintain the direction of your gaze. The quantum field handles everything else. the reconfiguration of circumstances, the appearance of opportunities, the dissolution of obstacles, the alignment of timing. Your role is pointing and holding, nothing more, nothing less. This simplicity is what makes the method so powerful and what makes it so difficult for those accustomed to the paradigm of effort and control. They cannot believe that something so simple could be so effective. But quantum mechanics operates on different principles than mechanical action. Observation determines reality. Selection determines observation. Therefore, selection determines reality. The final element of coordinate selection is acceptance of delivery in whatever form it appears. The quantum field will deliver your selected coordinate, but often through unexpected channels and in unexpected packages. If you have specified too rigidly how it must appear, you may reject the delivery when it arrives because it doesn't match your mental picture. This is a tragic error. The coordinate you selected, the experiential quality, the feeling state, the essential reality, is being delivered, but in a form you didn't anticipate. Your job is to recognize the essence of your selection when it appears and accept it with gratitude, even if the packaging surprises you. Trust that the quantum field knows how to deliver your selection more efficiently than your conscious mind can plan. Coordinate selection transforms you from someone trying to create a new reality to someone choosing which existing reality to inhabit. You are not working to become wealthy. You are selecting the coordinate where your wealthy self already exists. You are not working to find love. You are selecting the coordinate where you are already loved. You are not working to heal. You are selecting the coordinate where health is your natural state. This shift in self-concept from creator to selector, from builder to navigator, is the key that unlocks the space of variations and makes deliberate reality navigation not just possible, but inevitable. You are standing in an infinite warehouse where every possible version of your life is in stock. Which one will you select? Chapter 6. Induced Transitions. Within the quantum field, transitions between sectors can occur through two distinct mechanisms: natural drift and induced jump. Natural drift is the gradual organic shift that occurs as you consistently observe a new coordinate. This is the preferred method, the path of least resistance, the gentle reconfiguration that we have been discussing throughout this audiobook. But there exists a darker mechanism, more dangerous and more immediately potent: the induced transition. This is the quantum jump triggered by intense negative emotion, fear spirals, and catastrophic thinking. Where natural drift is like walking from one room to another, an induced transition is like falling through a trapdoor into a disaster lifeline, a sector of reality characterized by the very circumstances you feared most. The quantum field is responsive to emotional intensity, regardless of whether that intensity is positive or negative. In fact, negative emotions often carry more power than positive ones because they are accompanied by a sense of urgency and threat that captures your complete attention. When you spiral into fear, when you catastrophize about potential disasters, when you obsessively imagine worst-case scenarios, you are not merely thinking negative thoughts. You are actively observing a disaster coordinate with intense emotional focus. And as we have established throughout this method, observation with emotional intensity collapses the wave function. The disaster you fear is not being prevented by your fearful observation. It is being selected and drawn into your experience through that very observation. Consider the mechanism of a catastrophe spiral. You encounter a minor setback, a bill you cannot immediately pay, a symptom that concerns you, a conflict in a relationship. Your mind immediately extrapolates this setback into a cascade of disasters. If I cannot pay this bill, I will default on others. Then I'll lose my housing, then I'll lose my job, then I'll be homeless, then I'll... Each step in this mental cascade is an observation of a specific disaster coordinate. And with each imagined step, you feel the emotions you would feel if that disaster were actually happening: fear, panic, helplessness, despair. From the quantum field's perspective, you are not imagining, you are observing. You are selecting these disaster coordinates with intense emotional focus, and the field begins reconfiguring to deliver them to you. This is why worry is so dangerous from a quantum mechanics perspective. Worry is sustained observation of unwanted coordinates, maintained over time with consistent emotional investment. Each time you worry about your finances, you are observing the coordinate where financial disaster exists. Each time you worry about your health, you are observing the coordinate where illness progresses. Each time you worry about relationships, you are observing the coordinate where connection fails. The worry feels protective. You believe you are preparing for potential problems or trying to prevent them through mental vigilance. But you are actually commanding the quantum field to deliver the problems you are observing so consistently. The induced transition is particularly insidious because it often creates a self-fulfilling prophecy that seems to validate the worry. You worry about financial disaster, which causes you to make fear-based decisions, which lead to actual financial problems, which confirm that your worry was justified, which causes more worry, which leads to more problems. The spiral perpetuates because at each stage, you are observing and therefore creating the next stage of the disaster sequence. From inside the spiral, it feels like you are simply being realistic about legitimate problems. From outside the spiral, it is clear that you are actively constructing the disaster through consistent observation of disaster coordinates. The technique for interrupting an induced transition is called the stop command. The moment you notice yourself spiraling into catastrophic thinking or fear-based observation, you issue a firm internal command: stop. This is not mere positive thinking or attempting to replace negative thoughts with positive ones. This is a quantum interruption. You are breaking the observational pattern before it gains enough momentum to collapse the wave function into disaster. The stop command creates a brief space of neutral awareness where you are not observing any specific coordinate. In this space, you can consciously redirect your observation to your desired coordinate rather than the disaster coordinate. The practice requires vigilance because the mind's habit is to return to worry, to catastrophe, to fear-based observation. These patterns are deeply grooved through years of practice. Your consciousness will default to them unless you remain alert and interrupt them quickly. The key is to catch the spiral early, before the emotional momentum becomes overwhelming. If you can issue the stop command when the first fear arises, before it cascades into a full disaster scenario, you prevent the induced transition before it gains power. If you wait until you are deep in the spiral, the stop command requires more force to break the pattern, but it still works if applied with genuine intention. After issuing the stop command, you must immediately redirect your observation. You cannot simply stop observing the disaster without replacing it with observation of something else. The consciousness abhors a vacuum. It will fill the space with whatever observation is most habitual if you do not consciously direct it. Therefore, the complete technique is: stop the catastrophic observation, take a breath in the neutral space, then immediately shift observation to your desired coordinate. You recognize the fear spiral for what it is, an induced transition in progress, and you consciously choose to cancel that transition by withdrawing observation from the disaster sector. The emotional component of induced transitions cannot be overstated. Casual negative thoughts do not typically trigger quantum jumps to disaster lifelines because they lack the intensity required to collapse the wave function powerfully. It is the combination of sustained focus and intense emotion that creates the conditions for an induced transition. This is why a single moment of fear is not catastrophic, but a pattern of fearful thinking maintained over days or weeks can shift your entire reality toward the sectors you fear most. The time lag works in both directions. It prevents instant manifestation of random negative thoughts, but it also means that sustained negative observation will eventually materialize into negative circumstances. There is a specific type of induced transition that deserves particular attention: the transition triggered by consuming disaster narratives through media. When you spend hours consuming news about economic collapse, disease outbreaks, social unrest, or environmental catastrophe, you are observing these disaster coordinates with sustained attention. Even if these events are not directly affecting your personal life, the observation creates vulnerability to similar disaster patterns manifesting in your personal sector. You are tuning your consciousness to a disaster frequency, and the quantum field begins delivering experiences that match that frequency. This is not about burying your head in the sand. It is about recognizing that observation of disasters makes you more likely to experience disasters, even if the specific disasters differ. The protection against induced transitions is the cultivation of emotional neutrality toward potential problems. This does not mean becoming cold or uncaring. It means refusing to invest emotional intensity in imagined disasters. When a fear arises, you acknowledge it. This is a fear about X potential problem. You do not suppress the fear or deny it, but you also do not elaborate on it, feed it with emotion, or build disaster scenarios around it. You observe the fear itself with neutral curiosity, interesting that this fear arose, and then consciously redirect your observation to your chosen coordinate. You treat the fear as a signal worth noting, but not as a truth worth building reality around. The technique of worst-case scenario planning, popular in some psychological frameworks, is particularly dangerous from a quantum perspective. The advice is to imagine the worst possible outcome in order to prepare for it and reduce anxiety about it. But from the Parallax Method's perspective, this is an extended induced transition practice. You are deliberately observing disaster coordinates with the focused attention required for detailed planning, thus increasing the probability that some version of the disaster will manifest. Far better to acknowledge that problems sometimes occur, maintain general resilience and adaptability, and keep your sustained observation fixed on your desired coordinate rather than on potential disasters. There is a paradoxical aspect to induced transitions that must be understood. The more you fear them, the more likely they become. When you become anxious about accidentally triggering a negative quantum jump through a stray, fearful thought, that anxiety itself becomes the sustained negative observation that triggers the jump you feared. The solution is not hypervigilance about every thought, which creates new anxiety and new negative observation. The solution is to cultivate a general practice of positive expectation as your default state, so that occasional negative thoughts do not have enough momentum to overcome your baseline observation of positive coordinates. This baseline observation is like the dominant frequency on a radio dial. Occasional static does not change the station you are tuned to. But if you keep manually turning the dial toward disaster stations, if you dwell there, if you increase the volume on those frequencies, you eventually lock into that station and the disaster programming becomes your primary reception. The practice is to establish your desired coordinate as the default station, the frequency to which your consciousness returns when not actively engaged elsewhere. Negative thoughts will occasionally appear. This is normal. But if they are brief static, rather than sustained observation, they do not have the power to induce transitions. The liberation from induced transitions comes with the understanding that you have control over your observational focus, even if you do not have control over what thoughts arise. Thoughts appear spontaneously, influenced by past conditioning, external stimuli, and neurological patterns. But you choose which thoughts to invest with attention and emotion. You choose which thoughts to elaborate into extended observations. A fear can arise without your permission, but a fear spiral requires your participation. You are not responsible for the first thought, but you are responsible for what you do with it. Do you feed it and build a disaster scenario around it, or do you notice it, issue the stop command, and redirect to your chosen coordinate? The final insight about induced transitions is that they are not permanent traps. If you have accidentally induced a transition to a disaster lifeline through sustained negative observation, you can reverse it by changing your observation. The disaster circumstances may have begun to manifest in your physical reality, but they are not locked in place unless you continue to observe them with emotional intensity. If you can recognize what has happened, I induced this transition through catastrophic thinking, and consciously shift your observation back to your desired coordinate, the quantum field will begin reconfiguring again. The disaster circumstances will lose momentum and begin to dissolve as your sustained observation moves to a different sector. Induced transitions are the quantum mechanism behind self-fulfilling prophecies, and the observation that people who constantly expect disasters tend to experience them. It is not bad luck or cosmic punishment. It is simply the quantum field responding faithfully to the coordinates being observed most intensely and consistently. Your work is to maintain vigilant awareness of where your observation naturally drifts and to consciously redirect it away from disaster coordinates and toward your chosen destination. The stop command is your emergency brake. Your desired coordinate is your compass. Together, they allow you to navigate the space of variations without falling through the trapdoors that fear creates. Chapter 7. The Alternative Flow. The quantum field possesses an intelligence that operates beyond the comprehension of the conscious mind, not the intelligence of thought or strategy, but the intelligence of efficiency, the intelligence of least resistance, the intelligence of perfect timing. This intelligence is what we call the alternative flow, the natural current that carries your selected coordinate toward manifestation through the path that requires the least force, navigates around obstacles, and delivers your desire at the optimal moment when all elements are aligned. The alternative flow knows routes you cannot see, connections you cannot imagine, and shortcuts that bypass years of struggle. Your role is not to engineer the path, but to trust the current and follow the signs. Going with the flow is perhaps the most misunderstood concept in manifestation teaching. It is often interpreted as passivity, as abandoning goals and drifting wherever circumstances take you. But this is not the alternative flow. This is merely floating in the current of least resistance without direction, which usually means being pushed around by pendulums and circumstances. True flow is the combination of clear coordinate selection and flexible action. You know where you want to go, but you allow reality to show you the most efficient route, rather than insisting on the route your limited perspective can perceive. You set the destination. The flow determines the path. The mechanism of the alternative flow operates through synchronicity, opportunity, and guidance signals. When you hold your observation fixed on a specific coordinate, the quantum field begins reorganizing circumstances to bring that coordinate into your experience. But this reorganization does not follow the linear logic your conscious mind expects. The flow might close a door that you thought was your best opportunity, not as punishment, but because that path would have led to delays or complications. It might create an unexpected meeting with someone who holds a key piece of your puzzle. It might generate a spontaneous idea that, when followed, opens a completely new route you never would have considered. The key to working with the alternative flow is to develop sensitivity to these guidance signals while maintaining clarity about your destination. Many people lose their way because they confuse the signals. They mistake a dead end for guidance to give up, or they mistake a pendulum's manipulation for flow guidance. The distinction is this: genuine flow guidance moves you toward your selected coordinate through paths that feel right, even if they are unexpected. Pendulum manipulation moves you away from your coordinate through paths that feel obligatory, fearful, or driven by external pressure. Flow guidance creates expansion. Pendulum manipulation creates contraction. When a door closes despite your efforts to open it, this is often the flow routing you around an obstacle. Your conscious mind sees only the door and the goal beyond it, and when the door refuses to open, you interpret this as failure or blockage. But the flow operates with information you do not possess. That door might have led to a path that would have consumed years of your life with minimal progress toward your actual coordinate. The closing door is the flow protecting you from inefficiency and redirecting you toward a better route. Your job is not to force the door open through willpower and determination. Your job is to acknowledge that this particular door is not the path, release attachment to it, and remain alert for the door that opens easily. This principle requires a fundamental shift in how you approach obstacles. In the old paradigm, obstacles are enemies to be overcome through force. In the Parallax Method, obstacles are information. They tell you that the route you are attempting is not aligned with the alternative flow. Rather than doubling your efforts and pushing harder, you pause, acknowledge the obstacle, and look for the path that opens easily. This is not avoidance or surrender. It is intelligent navigation. You remain absolutely committed to your destination coordinate, but you remain flexible about the route. The destination is fixed, the path is variable. Consider a practical example. You have selected financial abundance as your coordinate. Your conscious mind believes this abundance must come through your current career, so you work harder, network more intensely, and push for the promotion you believe will deliver the abundance. But every effort meets resistance. Your proposals are rejected. The promotion goes to someone else. Your work relationships become strained. The old paradigm interprets this as, work even harder, prove yourself more. The Parallax Method interprets this as, this career is not the flow's chosen path for your abundance. Rather than pushing harder in the same direction, you maintain observation of your financial abundance coordinate while becoming alert to alternative opportunities. Perhaps a seemingly random conversation leads to a new career possibility. Perhaps an unexpected skill you possess becomes suddenly valuable in a different market. The flow is not blocking your abundance. It is redirecting you toward a more efficient path to it. The practice of following the flow requires that you take action, but the quality of action matters more than the quantity. Forced action, action driven by fear, desperation, or obligation, works against the flow. It creates resistance in the quantum field because the emotional quality of the action is broadcasting a frequency of lack or struggle. Inspired action, action that arises from intuition, genuine interest, or synchronistic opportunity, works with the flow. It feels effortless even when it requires effort because it is aligned with the current. The distinction is internal. Forced action feels heavy. Inspired action feels light. Forced action depletes you. Inspired action energizes you. Learn to discern between the two and follow only the inspired prompts. The alternative flow also operates through the principle of detachment from specific forms. You select your desired coordinate based on the quality of experience you want, not the specific form it must take. When you become attached to a specific form, this particular job, this particular person, this particular outcome, you create rigidity in the quantum field. You tell the flow, you must deliver my coordinate through this exact channel. But the flow may have a better channel available, one that delivers your desired experience more efficiently or more abundantly. Your attachment to the specific form blinds you to the better option when it appears. The practice is to remain clear about the essence of what you want, the feeling, the quality, the experience, while remaining open to whatever form delivers that essence. There is a subtle art to distinguishing between the flow guiding you to wait and the pendulum programming you with procrastination. Genuine flow-guided waiting has a quality of alert readiness. You are not taking a specific action yet because the timing is not aligned, but you are prepared to move when the signal arrives. Pendulum-induced procrastination has a quality of avoidance and anxiety. You are not taking action because of fear, overwhelm, or entanglement with limiting beliefs. The internal feeling is the indicator. Flow-guided waiting feels calm and expectant. Procrastination feels anxious and stuck. If you are uncertain which you are experiencing, err on the side of taking small, low-risk actions to test the waters. The flow will quickly show you whether movement is appropriate or whether you need to wait longer. The flow also communicates through your body and emotional state. When you are aligned with the flow, when your actions and observations are supporting your movement toward your selected coordinate, you feel lighter, more energized, more at peace. When you are working against the flow, when you are forcing, pushing, or attached to forms that are not aligned, you feel heavier, more exhausted, more anxious. Your body is a feedback mechanism for quantum alignment. Learn to listen to these subtle signals rather than overriding them with mental determination and willpower. The mind can convince you that you must push through the heaviness, but the body is telling you that you are moving against the current. The concept of divine timing is best understood as flow timing. Your selected coordinate will manifest when all elements in the quantum field are properly aligned, when the people, opportunities, resources, and circumstances necessary for its manifestation are available and synchronized. You cannot force this timing through impatience or anxiety. You can only maintain your observation of the desired coordinate and trust that the flow is handling the complex orchestration required to bring it into your physical reality. What appears to you as delay is often the flow assembling pieces that you cannot see, or arranging circumstances in a sequence that will deliver your coordinate in the most beneficial way possible. This trust in flow timing is particularly challenging for those conditioned by hustle culture and the pendulum of achievement. They have been taught that waiting is passive, that patience is weakness, that if something is not happening on their preferred timeline, they must not be working hard enough. But the alternative flow operates on quantum efficiency, not on linear effort. Sometimes the most powerful action is maintaining your observation while allowing the quantum field the time it needs to reconfigure the vast network of circumstances that will deliver your coordinate. Forcing premature action before the flow is ready often disrupts the process and extends the timeline rather than shortening it. The signs that you are aligned with the alternative flow include synchronicities that support your coordinate, opportunities appearing with minimal effort, ease and flow in your daily activities, a sense of rightness about your direction even when the path is unclear, and progress toward your coordinate that feels natural rather than forced. The signs that you are working against the flow include constant obstacles despite maximum effort, exhaustion and depletion from your activities, a sense of swimming upstream, opportunities that require excessive force to pursue, and a persistent feeling that something is off even when you are doing everything right, according to external metrics. Your mastery of the alternative flow develops through practice and attention. Each time you encounter a choice point, pursue opportunity A or opportunity B, push through resistance or pivot to a different approach, act now or wait for better timing, you pause and check in with your internal guidance. Not the voice of fear or the pendulum's demands, but the quiet intuition that arises when you are truly listening. Over time, you develop the capacity to feel the flow's current and to know when you are aligned with it versus when you are swimming against it. This intuitive sense becomes more reliable than any external strategy or formula because it is directly connected to the quantum field's intelligence. The ultimate understanding of the alternative flow is this: the universe is not neutral or hostile to your desires. It is actively reorganizing to deliver your selected coordinate, but it operates with an intelligence and information level that your conscious mind cannot match. Your job is not to figure out every step of the path. Your job is to maintain observation of your destination, follow the inspired actions that arise, remain alert to guidance signals, and trust that the flow is carrying you toward your coordinate through the optimal route. When you relax into this trust, while maintaining clarity about your destination, the journey becomes effortless in quality, even when effort is required in action. You are no longer forcing reality into compliance. You are dancing with reality's natural current toward your chosen destination. Chapter 8. Reducing Importance. In the quantum field, there exists a law as fundamental as gravity in physical reality, the law of balance. This law states that any excess potential created by assigning excessive importance to something will be met with an equal and opposite force that restores equilibrium. This balancing force is impersonal, automatic, and ruthlessly efficient. When you inflate the importance of your desire, when you elevate it to cosmic significance, when you make your happiness dependent on it, when you cannot imagine being okay without it, you create massive excess potential. And the quantum field responds by generating circumstances that push your desire away from you until the imbalance is corrected. This is why desperate need repels what is desperately needed. This is why the person who wants something most intensely often struggles most to obtain it. Excessive importance creates resistance. The mechanism of excess potential operates through the amplification of significance. When you assign normal, appropriate significance to a goal, the quantum field can deliver it smoothly because no imbalance exists in the system. If you want to buy a newspaper, you go to the store, select the newspaper, pay for it, and leave. The transaction is effortless because you have assigned the transaction normal importance. It matters enough to take action, but not so much that you create energetic disturbance around it. But if you approach the purchase of a luxury car with the belief that this car will determine your happiness, prove your worth, and validate your existence, you have created massive excess importance. The balancing forces activate immediately. Suddenly, you encounter financing obstacles. The dealership experiences delays. Your financial situation becomes complicated. The car is no different. Your relationship to it is creating the resistance. There are two types of importance that create excess potential: external importance and internal importance. External importance is assigning excessive significance to external circumstances, making your well-being dependent on events, objects, or other people. I cannot be happy unless I get this job. My life will be meaningless if this relationship ends. I must have wealth or I am a failure. These statements create massive imbalance because they falsely elevate external circumstances to ultimate importance. Internal importance is assigning excessive significance to yourself, inflating your own significance either positively or negatively. I am uniquely cursed and nothing ever works for me. I am so special that the rules don't apply to me. My opinion is more important than anyone else's. Both inflations of self and of circumstances create excess potential that the quantum field must balance. The balancing forces manifest in various forms, but they all serve to neutralize the excess potential. If you have created internal importance by inflating your own significance, the balancing force arrives as circumstances that humble you, diminish your inflated self-image, or cause your plans to fail despite your certainty in their success. If you have created external importance by making your happiness dependent on a specific outcome, the balancing force arrives as obstacles that keep that outcome just beyond your reach until you release the excessive importance. The universe is not punishing you for wanting things or for having confidence. It is simply restoring balance to a system you have knocked out of equilibrium through excessive importance. The technique for reducing importance is not to stop wanting what you want, or to convince yourself you do not care about your goals. Reduction of importance is a subtle internal shift in your relationship to the outcome. You maintain clarity about your selected coordinate and consistent observation of it, but you release the belief that your well-being depends on its manifestation. You practice a state that can be described as passionate indifference. You care about your goal enough to maintain focus on it, but you remain emotionally stable and okay regardless of when or how it manifests. You want it, but you do not need it for your sense of self or your basic okayness in the world. Consider the state of mind you have when buying that newspaper. You want the newspaper, so you take action to acquire it. But if the store is out of newspapers, you are not devastated. You might be mildly inconvenienced, but your fundamental well-being is not threatened. You simply adapt. You buy it elsewhere, you read news online, or you go without it for today. This is the energy of appropriate importance, engaged enough to take action, detached enough to remain balanced, regardless of outcome. Now imagine bringing this same energy to your major life goals. You want the financial abundance, so you observe that coordinate and take inspired action. But if it does not manifest on your preferred timeline, you are not devastated. You remain calm. You trust the process, you maintain your observation, and you adapt to present circumstances without emotional collapse. This is reduced importance. The practice appears simple, but requires significant internal work because excessive importance is deeply woven into how most people relate to their desires. They have been taught that they should want things desperately, that passion means need, that if they do not care intensely about their goals, they will not achieve them. But the quantum field operates on opposite principles. Appropriate importance allows smooth manifestation. Excessive importance creates resistance. The passionate, achievement-oriented person creates obstacles through the very intensity that they believe is necessary for success. The person who maintains calm, interested engagement with their goals while remaining fundamentally okay, regardless of outcome, navigates to their selected coordinate with surprising ease. To test your current level of importance around a goal, ask yourself, if this goal does not manifest, how will I feel? If the answer involves devastation, loss of identity, unbearable disappointment, or questioning your worth, you have created excessive importance. The goal has become inflated beyond its actual significance, and this inflation is creating resistance in the quantum field. The remedy is not to stop wanting the goal, but to reconnect with your fundamental okayness that exists, independent of any external achievement or circumstance. You were okay before you conceived this goal. You can be okay if it manifests differently than expected. Your core well-being is not dependent on any particular configuration of external reality. This is not nihilism or detachment from life. This is what might be called engaged equanimity. You participate fully in life, you pursue goals with focus and consistency, but you do not make your internal state hostage to external outcomes. You recognize that you are consciousness navigating the quantum field, and consciousness itself is already complete, already whole, already okay, regardless of which sector it inhabits. The various goals and desires are preferences about which experiences to have, not prerequisites for your basic okayness. When you operate from this understanding, you automatically reduce importance because nothing external determines your internal state. The reduction of internal importance, the inflation of self, is equally crucial. Many people sabotage their manifestations through either superiority or inferiority, both of which are forms of internal importance. The person who believes they are exceptionally deserving, uniquely qualified, or obviously superior creates excess potential that the universe balances through humiliation or failure. The person who believes they are uniquely cursed, fundamentally flawed, or inherently unworthy also creates excess potential that the universe balances by ensuring their self-image is confirmed through continued struggle. Both positions assign excessive importance to the self, one through inflation, the other through deflation. The balanced position is, I am consciousness, neither superior nor inferior to other consciousness, selecting a coordinate in the quantum field and observing it into manifestation. The technique of acting as if must be understood through the lens of importance reduction. Many manifestation teachings recommend acting as if you already have what you want. Dressing as a wealthy person would dress, speaking as a successful person would speak, carrying yourself as someone who has already arrived at their desired coordinate. This can be powerful if it is done from genuine alignment with your selected coordinate, from the understanding that you are practicing the observational state of already inhabiting that sector. But if it is done from a place of proving yourself, impressing others, or compensating for feelings of inadequacy, it becomes internal importance, inflating yourself artificially, and it creates balancing forces that undermine your manifestation. The emotional quality that accompanies reduced importance is calm confidence, not the aggressive confidence that must be proven or defended, but the quiet confidence that needs no external validation. You know where you are going in the quantum field. You trust the process of wave function collapse. You understand the mechanics of observation and manifestation. This knowledge creates a stable internal state that is not thrown off balance by temporary circumstances or delays. You are like a ship's captain who has set the coordinates and knows the destination will be reached, even when the ocean is rough or the wind is unfavorable. There is no panic, no desperate adjustment, no questioning of the destination. There is only steady maintenance, of course, and trust in the ship's ability to reach the programmed coordinates. Reducing importance also affects your interactions with others. When you assign excessive importance to someone's opinion of you, to their approval or disapproval, to their role in your life, you create excess potential in the relationship. The balancing forces manifest as that person pulling away, acting contrary to your needs, or the relationship becoming more complicated and difficult. When you reduce the importance, when you remain present and engaged in the relationship but not dependent on it for your sense of self or well-being, the relationship paradoxically becomes easier and often more fulfilling. People are energetically sensitive to the demands and needs projected onto them. When you reduce importance, you stop making unconscious demands, and the other person relaxes in your presence. The ultimate practice for reducing importance is developing a profound acceptance of the present moment, regardless of its content. This does not mean you love every circumstance or that you stop wanting improvement. It means you can observe your current sector of reality without internal resistance, without making your okayness dependent on circumstances being different. When you achieve this acceptance, you automatically reduce both external and internal importance. External importance deflates because you are okay, even if circumstances do not change. Internal importance deflates because your acceptance is not dependent on being special, superior, or even particularly significant. You are simply consciousness observing one moment in an infinite field of moments, and that is enough. The liberation that comes with reduced importance is immediate and palpable. Energy that was consumed in maintaining excessive importance, defending inflated self-images, desperately pursuing goals, and reacting to obstacles suddenly becomes available for clean observation of your desired coordinate. The balancing forces that were pushing your desires away from you begin to dissipate because you have removed the excess potential that triggered them. The quantum field can finally deliver your selected coordinate smoothly because you are no longer creating resistance through importance-based desperation. You still want what you want, you still observe it consistently, but the quality of your wanting has shifted from need to preference, from desperation to interested engagement. And in this shift, what was previously difficult becomes surprisingly easy. Chapter 9. The Frailing Technique. Human interaction operates according to principles that appear contradictory until you understand the quantum dynamics beneath social behavior. The conventional approach teaches that to get what you want from others, you must persuade, manipulate, negotiate, or trade value for value. But this transactional model operates entirely at the surface level and often creates resistance because it triggers the other person's defenses and importance mechanisms. The frailing technique operates at a deeper level, the level of energetic exchange and internal importance, and it achieves its outcomes not through direct manipulation, but through energetic redirection. When you want something from someone, the most efficient path is not to push for it directly, but to satisfy their internal importance first, creating an energetic imbalance that they will naturally move to correct by helping you. The term frailing comes from the concept of a frail, a current that moves alongside the main current in a river. Instead of swimming against someone's current, against their resistance and defense mechanisms, you swim alongside their current, moving with their natural flow until they voluntarily redirect toward your goal. The technique begins with a fundamental shift in orientation. When you want something from someone, you temporarily forget about your goal and focus entirely on satisfying their internal importance, their need to feel significant, acknowledged, valued, or understood. This is not manipulation if done with genuine presence. It is simply working with the quantum dynamics of how humans naturally respond to having their internal importance validated. Every person carries an internal importance, a need to feel significant in some way. For some, this manifests as the need to be seen as competent or knowledgeable. For others, it is the need to be seen as kind, creative, powerful, or wise. When you identify what form of internal importance a person carries and genuinely reflect that importance back to them, not through false flattery, but through authentic acknowledgement, you create a powerful, energetic dynamic. The person's internal importance is satisfied, often for the first time in a long while, and they experience a sense of recognition and validation that creates goodwill and openness. From this state of openness, they become naturally inclined to help you with your goal, not because you have manipulated them, but because you have created energetic alignment. The technique requires that you temporarily release attachment to your own goal during the interaction. If you approach someone with obvious need, with your goal written across your face, with your desperation visible in your energy, you create resistance. The other person senses they are being used as a means to your end, and their defenses activate. But if you approach with genuine curiosity about them, with authentic interest in satisfying their internal importance, your goal temporarily invisible in the background, they experience you as someone who sees them rather than as someone who wants something from them. This distinction is felt energetically long before it is understood consciously. Consider a practical example. You need a favor from a colleague who is known for being difficult and protective of their time. The direct approach, explaining your need and asking for help, is likely to meet resistance because you are triggering their defenses and making a demand on their resources. The frailing approach is different. You begin by identifying their internal importance. Perhaps this person prides themselves on their expertise in a particular area. You approach them not with your request, but with a genuine question or comment that acknowledges their expertise. You engage them in conversation about their area of competence. You listen with authentic interest. You allow them to satisfy their internal importance through sharing their knowledge. Only after this exchange, when energetic alignment has been established, do you casually mention your goal. And often, before you can even ask, they volunteer to help because the energetic dynamic has naturally inclined them toward assisting you. The power of the frailing technique lies in its indirectness. By not pushing directly for what you want, you eliminate the resistance that direct pushing creates. By satisfying the other person's internal importance first, you create positive energy in the interaction that naturally flows back toward you. This is quantum mechanics applied to human interaction. Energy put into the system returns through the path of least resistance. When you put in the energy of genuine acknowledgement and validation, it returns as willingness to help, often without you having to explicitly ask. The person helps you because it feels good to do so, because the interaction has created energetic flow rather than energetic blockage. The technique requires authenticity. If you are merely performing interest while internally focused on your goal, the other person will sense the inauthenticity energetically, even if they cannot name it consciously. True frailing requires that you genuinely put your goal aside during the interaction and become present to the other person. You are not faking interest in their internal importance. You are genuinely acknowledging it. The acknowledgement can be brief: a sincere compliment, a thoughtful question, an authentic moment of recognition, but it must be genuine. False flattery or manipulative praise creates the opposite effect, because it carries the energetic signature of inauthenticity and triggers the person's defenses even more strongly. There is a profound lesson in the frailing technique about how reality operates at the social level. People are not primarily motivated by logic, reason, or even self-interest in the way conventional psychology suggests. They are motivated by the satisfaction of their internal importance, their need to feel significant, seen, and valued. When you understand this and learn to identify and satisfy this need authentically, you gain a form of social navigation that is far more powerful than any manipulation strategy, because it works with the natural flow of human psychology rather than against it. You are not tricking people. You are recognizing a fundamental truth about what humans need and providing it in exchange for what you need. The frailing technique also reveals the futility of arguing with people who hold opposing views. When you argue with someone, you are directly attacking their internal importance because you are essentially saying, "You are wrong and I am right," which their psyche interprets as, "You are insignificant and I am significant." This triggers maximum resistance. No matter how logical your arguments, no matter how much evidence you present, the person's internal importance defense mechanisms will reject your position because accepting it would require them to acknowledge their insignificance. But if you use frailing, if you acknowledge their position without agreeing with it, if you find elements of truth or wisdom in their perspective, if you satisfy their internal importance, they often become genuinely open to considering your perspective because you have not triggered their defense mechanisms. The timing of introducing your goal after frailing is important. If you move too quickly to your request, before the other person's internal importance has been sufficiently satisfied, the frailing fails because it reveals itself as manipulation. If you wait too long, the energetic window may close, and the positive energy you created dissipates. The ideal timing is when you sense openness in the other person, a relaxation in their energy, a willingness in their tone, a genuine engagement in the interaction. This moment of openness is when your goal can be introduced naturally, often as a continuation of the conversation rather than as an abrupt request. The goal emerges organically from the interaction rather than being imposed upon it. There are limits to what the frailing technique can achieve. If what you are asking requires the other person to violate their values, take significant risks, or sacrifice something truly important to them, frailing will not override these boundaries. The technique works by creating positive energetic flow, and inclining people toward helping you when doing so is within their capacity and does not conflict with their core interests. It is not mind control. It is social lubrication. It reduces unnecessary resistance and makes cooperation more likely when cooperation is possible. When someone genuinely cannot help you, frailing will not force them to do so, but it will ensure that they decline without hostility and possibly point you toward alternatives. The technique also transforms your own experience of social interaction. When you approach interactions from the frailing mindset, you stop experiencing people as obstacles to overcome or resources to extract value from. You begin experiencing them as individual consciousnesses with their own internal importance needs, and you practice acknowledging those needs authentically. This shift makes social interaction less stressful and more genuinely connecting. You are no longer performing or strategizing constantly. You are simply seeing people and allowing them to feel seen. The fact that this also makes them more likely to help you is almost a side effect, a natural consequence of energetic alignment rather than the result of manipulation. The frailing technique can be applied to virtually any social situation where you want something from someone. Negotiations, job interviews, romantic interactions, requests for favors, conflict resolution, or any scenario where cooperation is needed. The underlying principle remains consistent. Satisfy their internal importance first, create positive energetic alignment, and then introduce your goal from within that alignment rather than imposing it from outside. This transforms potential confrontation into collaboration, resistance into flow, and social friction into smooth interaction. You move with their current rather than against it, and in doing so, you redirect that current naturally toward your desired outcome. The final wisdom of frailing is this: when you genuinely see others and acknowledge their significance, you create the conditions for them to naturally want to help you. This is not manipulation, but cooperation, the recognition that human interaction operates on energetic exchange, and that the person who learns to manage this exchange skillfully creates far better outcomes than the person who pushes directly for what they want. The universe rewards indirection in human interaction, just as it rewards indirection in manifestation. The direct path often creates maximum resistance. The path that flows with others' natural needs and inclinations reaches the destination with surprising ease. Chapter D. The Slide. In the architecture of intentional reality creation, there exists a technique so powerful and so direct that it functions as the primary tool for collapsing the wave function into your desired manifestation: the slide. This is not passive daydreaming or wishful fantasy. This is a precise quantum instrument, a static mental picture of your desired reality, held with such consistency and clarity that it overwrites the observation of your current reality and commands the quantum field to reconfigure physical circumstances to match your inner image. The slide is your selected coordinate translated into visual form, and it is carried with you throughout each day as a constant point of observation that gradually pulls your physical reality into alignment with it. The creation of your slide is the first and most crucial step. You must construct a single static image that captures the essence of your desired reality. Not a movie, not a series of images, but one clear picture that represents the end result of having already arrived at your selected coordinate. If your coordinate is financial abundance, your slide might be an image of yourself checking your bank balance and seeing the figure you desire. If your coordinate is a fulfilling relationship, your slide might be an image of yourself with your partner in a moment that captures the quality of connection you seek. The image must be simple enough to be easily reproduced in your mind, emotionally resonant enough to carry the feeling of your desired reality, and specific enough to clearly represent your coordinate while remaining flexible about the exact details of how it manifests. The slide must represent the end result, not the process of getting there. This is critical. Your slide is not you working toward your goal, struggling to achieve it, or in the middle of the journey. It is you having already arrived. This distinction matters profoundly to the quantum field because it determines which sector you are observing. If your slide shows you working toward wealth, you are observing the coordinate of working toward wealth, and the quantum field will deliver more working toward wealth. If your slide shows you already wealthy and at peace with your wealth, you are observing the coordinate of already wealthy, and the quantum field will deliver circumstances that match that coordinate. The slide is always the destination, never the journey. Once you have created your slide, the practice is to carry it with you constantly as a background frequency in your consciousness. This does not mean you are consciously visualizing it every moment. That would be exhausting and impractical. It means the slide exists as a subtle presence in your awareness, like a song playing quietly in the background of your mind. When your attention is not occupied with immediate tasks, it defaults to the slide, rather than to worry, planning, or observation of current problems. You are training your consciousness to rest in the observation of your desired reality as its natural default state. The technique of overlaying the slide on your current reality is where the true power emerges. As you move through your day encountering current circumstances that contradict your desired reality, you practice a form of double vision. You see your current circumstances clearly. You are not in denial, but you simultaneously hold the slide over them like a transparent layer. You look at your modest car, but you see the slide of yourself in the luxury vehicle. You look at your current job, but you see the slide of yourself in the fulfilling career. You look at your empty apartment, but you see the slide of yourself in the home you desire. This double vision creates tension in the quantum field, two realities being observed simultaneously, and the field must eventually resolve this tension by shifting physical reality toward the more consistently observed image. The consistency of carrying the slide is more important than the intensity. Many people create a powerful slide and practice it intensely for a few days during meditation or visualization sessions, then abandon it for the rest of the day as they return to observing current problems and limitations. This inconsistent observation creates confusion in the quantum field. Which coordinate are you truly selecting? The slide you occasionally visualize, or the current reality you observe constantly? The field responds to the dominant observation, which is usually the current reality. But if you carry the slide consistently as a background frequency, even without intense focus, you gradually shift the balance until the slide becomes the dominant observation and current reality begins to lose coherence. The emotional component of the slide is essential, but must be properly calibrated. The slide should carry the feeling of having already arrived at your desired coordinate. Satisfaction, peace, fulfillment, whatever emotion characterizes actually being there. But this feeling should be gentle and sustainable, not forced or desperate. If you try to generate intense positive emotion every time you access the slide, you will exhaust yourself and create importance around the practice. The feeling should be more like the quiet satisfaction you feel when something is simply good in your life. Not ecstatic celebration, but calm contentment. This sustainable emotional tone can be maintained throughout the day without draining your energy. There is a specific technique for reinforcing the slide that involves engaging your physical senses in the present moment while holding the internal image. As you go about your daily activities, you periodically pause and fully engage your senses, what you can see, hear, smell, touch in the present moment, while simultaneously holding your slide in your inner vision. This practice anchors the slide into your sensory reality, training your consciousness to experience the slide as if it were as physically real as your current circumstances. Over time, the boundary between internal image and external reality begins to blur, and the quantum field responds by materializing circumstances that match the image you are carrying with such sensory detail. The slide must be updated if your desired coordinate evolves or becomes clearer over time. You are not locked into the first slide you create. As you gain more clarity about what you truly want, as you refine your understanding of your desired coordinate, you can adjust the slide to match, but avoid changing it constantly based on doubt or comparison with others. Change it only when you genuinely recognize that your previous slide was not accurately representing your true desired coordinate. Frequent changes suggest you have not achieved clarity about your destination, and the quantum field cannot deliver a constantly moving target. Find the slide that truly resonates with your authentic desire and commit to it with consistency. The practice of the slide naturally reduces importance because you are practicing the feeling of already having what you want. When you have already arrived at your desired coordinate in your internal experience, the external manifestation becomes less desperate and more expected. You are not anxiously waiting for something you lack. You are simply allowing physical reality to catch up with the reality you are already inhabiting internally. This shift in relationship to your desire automatically deflates the excess importance that creates resistance. You still want the physical manifestation, but you are already experiencing the essence of it through consistent engagement with the slide. The slide technique also protects you from negative-induced transitions. When fear or catastrophic thinking attempts to arise, the slide provides an immediate alternative observation point. Instead of spiraling into disaster scenarios, you redirect to the slide. Instead of observing problems, you observe your desired reality. The slide becomes your refuge from reactive observation, your anchor point that prevents you from being pulled into unwanted sectors by passing emotions or circumstances. Each time you return to the slide, after being temporarily pulled away by external events, you strengthen your ability to maintain observation on your chosen coordinate, regardless of what is happening around you. The manifestation that arrives from consistent slide practice often surprises in its timing and form. You may be carrying your slide for weeks or months with no apparent physical change, and then suddenly circumstances shift rapidly and dramatically. This is not random. It is the quantum field reaching a threshold where the accumulated observation of the slide overcomes the momentum of current reality, and physical circumstances reorganize quickly to match the new dominant observation. Or the manifestation may arrive gradually, through small improvements that compound over time, until you realize you have arrived at your slide without noticing the exact moment of transition. Both patterns are normal, and neither indicates success or failure in your practice. The slide technique can be applied to any aspect of reality you wish to shift: finances, relationships, health, career, living situation, or any other coordinate in the space of variations. The principle remains constant. Create a clear image of the desired end result, carry it consistently as your default observation, overlay it on current reality to create quantum tension, and maintain this practice with calm persistence until physical reality reorganizes to match your internal image. The slide is not magic or wishful thinking. It is deliberate, consistent observation of a specific coordinate in the quantum field, and observation always determines which reality manifests. The final instruction for working with the slide is this: treat it as real. Not as a fantasy you indulge in occasionally, but as an actual reality that exists in the quantum field and that you are actively observing and inhabiting. The more real the slide feels to you, the more you engage with it as if it were already your physical reality, the faster the quantum field will materialize it into your experience. You are not pretending or lying to yourself. You are selecting a coordinate that genuinely exists in the space of variations and practicing the observation of that coordinate until your physical circumstances shift to reflect it. This is navigation of reality at the quantum level, and the slide is your primary navigational instrument. Chapter 18: The Materialization. After weeks, months, or sometimes years of holding your coordinate steady through consistent observation, through weathering the time lag, through maintaining your slide against all contrary evidence, the moment of materialization arrives. This is when physical reality finally catches up with the coordinate you have been observing, when the quantum wave function collapses fully into the manifestation you have been holding in your consciousness. But the arrival of your desire often comes quietly, through unexpected channels in forms that may not match your mental picture exactly. Many seekers miss their manifestation entirely because they are so fixated on how they expected it to arrive that they fail to recognize it when it appears through a different door, wearing different clothes, presenting itself in a package they did not anticipate. The quantum field has no obligation to deliver your selected coordinate according to your conscious mind's limited imagination of how it could possibly manifest. In fact, the field often chooses routes that are far more efficient, creative, and beneficial than anything your conscious mind could have planned. You selected financial abundance, but you expected it to come through a promotion at your current job. Instead, it arrives through an unexpected inheritance, through a spontaneous business opportunity, through a skill you possess suddenly becoming valuable in a market you never considered. The essence of your coordinate, financial abundance, has materialized, but the form is different from what you anticipated. Your job is to recognize the essence and accept the delivery, not to reject it, because the packaging doesn't match your expectations. This principle of flexible form but fixed essence is why the parallax method emphasizes selecting coordinates based on the quality of experience you want rather than the specific forms that deliver it. If you are too attached to form, this specific job, this specific person, this specific sequence of events, you create rigidity in the quantum field and you risk rejecting your manifestation when it arrives in an unexpected form. But if you remain clear about the essence, the feeling of abundance, the experience of fulfilling work, the quality of connection, and flexible about form, you can recognize your coordinate when it materializes regardless of which specific form delivers it. The quantum field knows how to deliver your desired experience. You do not need to micromanage the details. The moment of materialization often comes accompanied by a sense of naturalness that can be disconcerting. After all the effort of holding your observation steady, after all the practice of maintaining your slide, after all the discipline of reducing importance, when your desire finally manifests, it often feels ordinary. Not ecstatic, not miraculous, but simply natural, as if it was always meant to happen this way, as if this is simply how things unfolded. This ordinariness is actually a sign that you have successfully shifted to the coordinate where your desire exists. In that sector, your manifestation is not exceptional or surprising. It is just how reality is. The drama and significance you may have anticipated are absent because you have successfully reduced importance. Your manifestation has arrived without excess potential, without fanfare, simply as the natural result of consistent observation. There is a specific trap that many encounter at the threshold of manifestation: self-sabotage through doubt at the critical moment. You have been observing your desired coordinate consistently for months. Circumstances have been gradually shifting in alignment with your slide. You can feel the materialization approaching, and precisely at this point, doubt floods in. This can't really be happening. I don't deserve this. Something will go wrong. This is too good to be true. This doubt is not random. It is the old coordinate, the old pattern, making a final desperate attempt to maintain itself. If you give in to this doubt, if you abandon your observation at the critical moment when materialization is imminent, you can delay or even derail the manifestation after months of consistent practice. The protection is to recognize this pre-materialization doubt for what it is, not truth but resistance, and to hold your observation steady through it. The arrival of your manifestation requires action on your part. The quantum field will deliver your desired coordinate into your sphere of possibility, but you must recognize it and take the physical actions necessary to receive it. If you have been observing financial abundance and an unexpected business opportunity appears, you must actually engage with that opportunity, research it, pursue it, take the meetings, do the work. The quantum field has brought the opportunity to you through alternative flow, but you must participate in the physical plane for the manifestation to complete. This is not contradictory to the principle that you are selecting rather than creating. Selection includes accepting delivery when it arrives and taking the logical physical actions that complete the transaction. Sometimes the manifestation arrives in stages rather than as a single event. You observe abundant wealth, and first you receive an unexpected influx of money that solves an immediate problem. Then, a new income stream opens. Then your expenses unexpectedly decrease. Then an investment pays off. Each stage is part of the overall materialization of your selected coordinate, but they arrive sequentially rather than simultaneously. Your job during this stage manifestation is to recognize and celebrate each stage as confirmation that the process is working, while maintaining observation of the complete coordinate. Do not become impatient or discouraged because the full manifestation has not arrived in one moment. Trust that each stage is progress and continue holding your observation steady. There is also the phenomenon of the manifestation appearing and then seeming to disappear if you do not maintain your observation after arrival. This happens when someone holds their coordinate long enough for it to materialize, but then immediately shifts their observation back to their old patterns once they see the beginning of manifestation. They relax their practice too early, assume the job is done, and begin observing doubt, unworthiness, or fear that it will be taken away. This shifted observation can actually reverse the materialization because you have moved your consciousness back to the old coordinate. The practice must continue even after the initial signs of manifestation appear. You maintain observation of having and enjoying your desire, not just observation of it arriving. The manifestation must be stabilized in physical reality through continued appropriate observation. When your manifestation fully arrives and stabilizes, the appropriate response is gratitude and continued observation of the coordinate you now inhabit. Gratitude reinforces the coordinate by acknowledging that you are now experiencing what you selected. It is not superstition or religious ritual, it is quantum confirmation. You are observing and acknowledging the reality you now inhabit, which strengthens your position in that sector. If you receive your manifestation, but immediately begin observing what you still lack, you begin the process of shifting to a different coordinate where lack is present. The practice after manifestation is to observe and appreciate what has materialized while maintaining flexibility to refine or expand your coordinate if your authentic desires evolve. The materialization phase also teaches you about your own relationship with success and receiving. Some people unconsciously reject their manifestation because having what they want would require them to release familiar identities, victim narratives, or patterns that have been central to their self-concept. The person who has built their identity around struggle may unconsciously sabotage success because success would require becoming someone different. The person who has bonded with others through shared complaints about lack may unconsciously reject abundance because it would separate them from their community. These unconscious resistance patterns often become visible only when manifestation is imminent, and addressing them is sometimes necessary for the manifestation to complete. The ultimate teaching of the materialization phase is that receiving is as much a skill as manifesting. You must be willing to accept the form in which your coordinate arrives, willing to take the physical actions required to complete the reception, willing to maintain observation of the new reality you have entered, and willing to release old identities and patterns that are incompatible with your new coordinate. Manifestation is not complete when the quantum field delivers your desire to your doorstep. It is complete when you open the door, accept the package, unpack it, integrate it into your life, and continue living from the new coordinate it represents. This final step of conscious reception and integration is what transforms a momentary manifestation into a stable new reality. The moment you have been working toward, the arrival of your selected coordinate into physical manifestation, is both an ending and a beginning. It is the completion of one cycle of navigation through the space of variations, and the potential beginning of a new cycle as you select your next coordinate. But before you move to what's next, you must fully inhabit what has arrived. You must acknowledge that you successfully navigated from one sector to another, that you observed a specific coordinate consistently enough to collapse the wave function into corresponding physical reality, that you trusted the process through the time lag and the tests. This acknowledgement is not ego, but recognition of your capacity to navigate reality at the quantum level. You have proven to yourself that the Parallax Method works, that you can select coordinates and move to them through conscious observation. This proof is not for anyone else, it is for you, and it establishes the foundation for every future navigation you will undertake in the infinite space of variations. Epilogue, the Keeper of Reality. You have journeyed through the architecture of reality, from the quantum foundations of the observer effect to the moment when your selected coordinate materializes in physical form. You now understand what most of humanity has forgotten or never knew. You are not a victim of circumstances, not a passenger in a predetermined life, not subject to the whims of fate or fortune. You are a consciousness navigating the space of variations, a traveler among infinite sectors, a selector of coordinates in the quantum field. Every moment of every day, you are choosing which reality to inhabit through the placement of your observation, through the focus of your attention, through the frequency you maintain in your consciousness. The Parallax Method is not another manifestation technique to practice casually when you remember or when you feel inspired. It is a complete paradigm shift in how you understand and interact with reality itself. Reality is not solid. It is not fixed. It is not happening to you. Reality is responsive, fluid, and infinitely malleable to the position of the observer, to your position. When you change where you stand in the quantum field, when you shift your observational point from one coordinate to another, reality has no choice but to reconfigure itself to match your new position. This is not faith or hope. This is physics. This is the documented, measured behavior of reality at the quantum level, scaled up to the level of your daily experience. Throughout these chapters, you have learned the specific mechanics of navigation. You understand that your life is a wave of infinite possibilities that collapses into specific circumstances based on where you place your observation. You understand that pendulums will attempt to trap your consciousness in sectors of struggle and limitation by feeding on your emotional reactions. You understand that you are quantumly entangled with whatever you observe with intense emotion, and that entanglement tethers you to specific coordinates, regardless of your stated desire to move elsewhere. You understand that reality is a mirror with a time lag, reflecting back your internal image after a delay that tests your consistency and commitment to the new coordinate. You have learned the art of coordinate selection, not creating what you want, but selecting it from among the infinite variations that already exist in the quantum field. You have learned about induced transitions and how catastrophic thinking can trigger quantum jumps to disaster lifelines that you feared. You have learned to work with the alternative flow, trusting the quantum field to deliver your selected coordinate through routes you cannot see or imagine. You have learned to reduce the importance that creates resistance, maintaining passionate engagement with your goals while remaining fundamentally okay regardless of timing or temporary circumstances. You have learned the social application of quantum principles through the frailing technique, understanding that satisfying others' internal importance creates energetic flow that naturally returns to you as cooperation and assistance. You have learned the power of the slide, the visual representation of your selected coordinate that you carry as a constant point of observation until physical reality reorganizes to match it. And you have learned about materialization, about recognizing your manifestation when it arrives in unexpected forms, about accepting delivery and integrating your new coordinate into your stable reality. All of these techniques, all of these principles, all of this understanding converges on a single core truth. You move to where your focus is fixed. The quantum field is not random, not chaotic, not indifferent. It is exquisitely responsive to consciousness, to observation, to sustained focus. Where you place your observation consistently and with emotional resonance, there you will find yourself in physical reality, given sufficient time for the wave function to collapse and the mirror to catch up with your internal image. This is the only rule. This is the complete instruction. Everything else is simply refinement of how to maintain your focus on the chosen coordinate, despite the countless distractions, doubts, and provocations that will attempt to pull your observation back to familiar coordinates. The work ahead of you is simultaneously simple and challenging. Simple because the method is clear. Select your coordinate, hold your observation steady, maintain your slide, reduce importance, follow inspired action, accept delivery when it arrives. Challenging because every aspect of modern society, every pendulum, every social conditioning, every moment of the time lag will test your commitment to your selected coordinate. You will be tempted to abandon your observation when physical reality shows no immediate change. You will be tempted to react emotionally to provocations and thus create new entanglements. You will be tempted to force and push rather than allowing the alternative flow to guide you.